The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from federaljack.com. It is July 15th, 2014. And as promised, here in hour number 2, I am extremely pleased to be joined by my special guest for hour number 2 here, Tatiana Moroz. She is a musician, singer, activist, and so much more. And I didn't want to just say singer, because yes, she sings, but she's just also a brilliant musician. She helps other musicians out behind the scenes. She's just an all-around awesome individual, and I am extremely pleased to be able to bring her to the airwaves for you all to meet if you don't already know her, which I'm sure many of you already do. So anyway, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to it. Tatiana, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks very much for having me on. Happy to be here.
So I want to pick your brain a few minutes before we get into liberty loving and freedom and Bitcoin and Tatiana coin, which is interesting. I have so many questions I want to ask you about Bitcoin. But before we get into that, tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself, like what got you into music, and then how you use your music to do good for the world, which you do, by the way. And thank you so much for making beautiful music.
Well, I'm very honored to be able to do what I do, because it's been something that's always been my goal ever since I was a little girl. I always knew I wanted to sing. I always knew that I wanted to, quote unquote, save the world. It was really important to me. Me and my mom, we used to drive. She would take me skiing when I was younger, and she would play, Simon and Garfunkel and Cat Stevens and sort of those 70s, 60s and 70s singer-songwriters. And I used to love the message, especially with Cat Stevens. I mean, he might be my number one favorite artist, or most influential. So I always, was blown away by their ability to bring about change in the world through something as beautiful as music. And as the years have gone on, that continues to be a focus for me. I think that music is a wonderful way to take the worst things in the world and turn them into a work of art and a source of comfort for people. So while I've always been singing and doing music and stuff since I was a kid, I didn't really know, though, where I could take that. My generation didn't seem to have, it wasn't like this, the civil rights movement or anything. There wasn't any kind of motivation among my generation until I found out about the Ron Paul movement. And when I found out about Ron Paul, I immediately knew that was where I belonged. And fortunately, I was accepted very quickly. And I got to do so many wonderful things ever since 2012. I got to play for Ron Paul several times. I did some Gary Johnson events, and I've met so many wonderful people in the Liberty movement. And now I've kind of grown into Bitcoin. When I first heard about Bitcoin, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand what it was. Tony Galippi kept trying to explain it to me, and I was like, "Yeah, whatever. Here's like $500. Get me some Bitcoins and leave me alone." Not leave me alone, but I didn't really understand the point of it, but I thought it was a good investment. And as time went on, and I was going to all these different Liberty events, I was getting very discouraged because it seemed a little bit more hopeless. Now that I realized that Ron Paul wasn't going to win, I was like, this is kind of, depressing, because I just didn't really think that they were going to let anybody take well, first of all, I mean, the president's office is sort of a rigged game in the first place, but I basically was very disillusioned. And then what ended up happening was I went to a Bitcoin event in Atlanta that Jeffrey Tucker had. And when I was there, I recognized hope, which is what I had first been really attracted to and inspired by when I joined the Ron Paul movement, was that feeling of, okay, now we have a sense of purpose. Now we have something to do. And so I got more interested in Bitcoin, and I sort of got over that fear of technology. And ever since then, I've just gotten more and more involved in it. I don't know if your audience kind of knows my background regarding some of that stuff, but now I just got a job with Bitcoin Magazine as their sales director. Just, I guess, 9 months after I started really concentrating on Bitcoin, I'm totally immersed in the space. I have Tatiana Coin, all these things I just never would have expected.
And Bitcoin, I know a decent amount about it, and I've talked about it with people on air before. In fact, a mutual friend of ours, Alex, has been on the broadcast before, and we've talked about everything from hacking to Bitcoin and stuff, and we've gone over it in detail. But I haven't talked about Bitcoin probably honestly about in depth in like 7 or 8 months, and it's just there's so much out there. It's like you get sidetracked. But since I have you on, I want to pick your brain a little bit. Tatiana Coin, how do you get your own version of Bitcoin? How do you do that? And then if someone was interested in actually like purchasing any and like getting into it, like buying Tatiana Coin, how would they do that? Like take as much time as you need, because we have plenty of time before the break, so you can get an in-depth as you want.
Sure. Well, when I first heard about Tatiana Coin, I thought it was sort of a joke. We were in Berlin and we were kind of roaming through the streets, and all the guys started saying, yeah, let's do Tatiana Coin. And I had been hearing, the term Bitcoin 2.0, which, trust me, I am not a Bitcoin expert. I know people sometimes expect that because I'm in the space, but I think that also is an advantage to me, because it helps me evangelize in that people aren't intimidated. It's not somebody who knows everything and is going to make you stupid if you don't know the answer to something. I certainly don't know the answer to everything. So anyway, so the guys were talking about Tatiana Coin, and about a month before that, I had met with Adam Levine from Let's Talk Bitcoin, and Adam had been explaining to me the label concept and the artist coin concept. And it took me, about a month and a half for it to kind of sink in and to really understand what they were talking about. I mean, it's completely new technology. But one way I like to explain it is it's sort of like an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter campaign. So when they had something called Oculus Rift, it's like a 3D glasses thing. People donated through Kickstarter $2 million to Oculus Rift. And what did they get for their $2 million? They got a t-shirt, they got, a poster, they got like stupid stuff. Who cares about those things, right? But a year later, Oculus Rift sold for $2 billion. And all those people that gave them that startup money to get their project off the ground got nothing for it. So with Tatiana Coin, we kind of aim to solve that problem. People can go to the website, coinpowers.com. Now, CoinPowers is the person, they're like the Indiegogo, or they're the Kickstarter for these types of coins. And people can go to coinpowers.com, or of course they can follow the link from tatianacoin.com. And basically they go to CoinPowers and they donate money with Bitcoin, they send it into the wallet, and then they're given Tatiana Coin back. So when we first started it, we actually did it as a bidding model. So people we made 3 million coins, right? and people would get every day of the 30-day campaign, there would be 100,000 coins up for grabs. So if it was a really slow day, the person who donated that day could get a bunch of coins. If it was, a busy day, then there would be a less proportionate amount distributed to people because it was kind of divvied up by who donated. Right now, we found that while that was good for some of the hardcore Bitcoin guys that really know how to play the markets, it was really complicated for the average person. And I created the coin to help sort of be an introduction to cryptocurrency for my fans. And, of course, my main goal is always to be reaching the masses. So that model was not really perfect for us. So what we ended up doing was we stopped that about halfway through and we pivoted to more of a vending machine type model, which is where we are now. And it's about 5 cents per Tatiana coin. So there's not going to be a time limit on it. I mean, unless I sell out of the coins, which hopefully, obviously I will. But basically, yeah, people can go there and they could buy Tatiana coin. And Tatiana coin is basically, you could use it in the Tatiana store. So, for example, you can trade in Tatiana coin for advanced copies of the CD before they're out, the first issue autographed copy. You can get a Skype hangout with me. You can go with me to the recording studio and watch me record a song. You can give me your lyrics and I will help you write a song for a loved one and I'll make a nice recording for you. I'll do a house concert. I mean, there's all these different kinds of fun exclusive prizes that you can only buy with Tatiana coin. As far as, sure, people could still buy my CDs at the store or whatever, but you're going to get some sort of a benefit, some sort of exclusivity, like you're in a fan club when you're purchasing with Tatiana coin. And the nice thing with Tatiana coin is that it's very flexible. So say you didn't want a t-shirt, you're not locked into that anymore. Now you have a token that you could transfer to somebody and you can use it whenever you want. You can get some more coins and get a different prize. So there's like more flexibility. And also, if, for example, there's only 3 million Tatiana coins and my Tatiana coin holders want to be able to sell their coins for a higher value, by promoting me, that means that there's going to be more people that want Tatiana coin, which will drive the price up of Tatiana coin. So people can even look at it as a way to make money. If they get bored of me and they just need to sell their Tatiana coin, they could potentially be making more money off of it. Although I don't really think that that's the main reason why people do it. I think that people do it because they support what I'm doing. They believe in my project. It's not like a mining thing. The value is based on the content that I create. It's also based on my reputation. So, if you expand this model to other kinds of projects, I think it's really going to incentivize better work ethic and better behavior and better output from the participants. And it also, it gives me a feedback loop with my fans. So if people gave me money in an Indiegogo campaign, a week later, 2 weeks later, they're not going to remember that they even gave me that money. But if people have Tatiana coin, now they're kind of with me on the journey. And I think it builds a much better relationship with my fans, which I really appreciate and they really appreciate. I mean, don't you have favorite artists that you want to kind of interact with constantly? And I don't know. I mean, it speaks to the way that we interact with music. So I think that those are some of the benefits of it. And I hope that it will be a model for how we bootstrap other kinds of endeavors in the future, not only with musical artist coins, but just with coins for, say you want to open a bakery, say you want to do a movie, say you want to do all different kinds of projects. And if you can muster up people to donate, they have like a return on their investment. It's not exactly an investment, but it sort of is. It's like this new gray, weird area, but it's a lot of fun. And we've just been having a really good time exploring it. The guys are obviously technically inclined, but I'm not. So I don't know. I look at it as a bit of a journey that I go on with my fans and with people who are learning about this. And my goal is once the Tatiana coin thing is kind of settled in, we've got a good flow going, which we're actually pretty close to that point. I'm going to do a record label that is based off of Tatiana coin. But instead it would just be multiple artist coins and then a label coin on top of it, which I hope will solve a lot of the problems in the music industry right now. And I think that'll be a really cool experiment to teach people about cryptocurrency as well.
Yeah, a lot of people are afraid to get involved with cryptocurrency just because they don't know about it. It's like anything else. It's new and scary, and the news media has done a decent job of frightening people away from it, just like they do with gold, silver, and anything else that's the alternative to the almighty greenback. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why. But that's why I think Tatiana coin is cool, because people are already used to Indiegogo. They're already used to those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, if they donate $20, I'm not. I mean, I may just. I mean, I guess I wouldn't do this, obviously, but it's not like they're spending millions of dollars and they're going to get screwed over. I think it's a safer environment for people. It's a more fun environment for people. So I think that by interacting in that way, plus they don't have that high expectations, in that people want to support me not because they want to make money off of me, but because they believe in my art. So it's like a different motivation as well. And I think that that's a great baby step into cryptocurrency. And it gives me an opportunity to teach people about cryptocurrency and also learn more about it as I go along. For example, there's just all sorts of things in crypto that I don't understand. But as I go along this journey, we're all learning together. And I think that that's really cool. And it's really fun. And it's just not as intimidating as regular old Bitcoin stuff can be.
And spreading the idea of freedom in any sense, whether it be personal freedom, political, economic, it's hard to get these messages across to people. It's amazing. People would rather actually stay enslaved than, people that are stuck in the Matrix, right? I mean,
yeah.
Morpheus lectured Neo about that. But the way you do it, I really think it has an effective way, because you are making your fans, your listeners, part of it. You're interacting with them. I like that. I do that in my own way. There's a lot of times that, like, when I do a radio show, if I do it that's like an educational broadcast, something that I consider educational, I try to make it fun and interactive so that they want to listen, And I think it's thinking outside the box like that helps get these messages across. And I think that's one of the reasons people like you. Plus, you have an awesome personality, so that helps too. I mean, you have to be a good presenter as well and be able to get it across. I mean, because that's just as important. I mean, if you have somebody talking in very monotone, voice that doesn't have any passion or any brains behind what they're talking about, it's like,
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate that, and that's definitely what I'm going for. So it's been really cool just exploring it, and it is a fun thing. I mean, this is an exciting technology. When you hear about the blockchain, you were like, can I just leave the room because this is dull? But if you do it and you interact with people in a musical way and you make some jokes and sometimes you do something stupid and then you laugh about it, I mean, that's the kind of environment where people feel comfortable, where they want to hang out. And that's what we're trying to do is bring more people into this and make it as accessible as possible.
And that's a good thing. Again, people are very afraid to even think about cryptocurrency. I find they're afraid to even talk about it. And I didn't even know there was a Bitcoin magazine. So, I mean, that's good. That way people can actually. And is it just online, or is there actually like a physical, actual printed out magazine as well?
Oh no, it's a beautiful magazine. It's been, I think we're gonna do issue 23 is coming up, so it's been around for a while. And it's one of the most respected magazines in the space, one of the oldest magazines in the space. And I'm quite happy to be a part of it because it allows me to evangelize Bitcoin in a new way. I'm not, I always journaled and stuff like that, and I've written blog posts, but this is sort of encouraging me to contribute in that way. And also it gives me the ability to share the stories in Bitcoin and in Liberty, for that matter, that I think people need to hear about. What you said before with the media making Bitcoin into this big scary monster. There's not only big scary monster stories about Bitcoin. There's so many wonderful, inspiring stories. And by being a part of this forward-thinking group, I mean, I love the staff over there. I'm helping to shape the perception of Bitcoin on a larger scale than just if I was singing. If somebody doesn't like my singing, maybe they like heavy metal music or something. So I'm not going to necessarily reach them, but I have a much larger platform when I'm working with the magazine. And so far it's been really rewarding, and it's totally new for me. Most of my experience has been in music, and now I'm in publishing. So it's great. It's a lot of fun, and I'm happy to give a forum to those stories that I really admire, and to the writers that I think are doing an incredible job telling those stories.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was a Bitcoin magazine until
Well, now you know.
Yeah, and then when you had said that you had gotten a job there, I was like, oh, interesting. Did not even know that there was a publication. I had no clue that it even existed. See, but that's what we need. We need the public itself, the general public needs to have access to this information because, like I said, nobody really knows about cryptocurrency. And I mean, although it has gone up, I mean, Bitcoin's jumped dramatically from what it was when it first came on the scene. Mm-hmm. It has even bigger potential if more and more people used it, and it would be more and more freedom from the printed dollar, which is really what it's killing this planet. It's destroying this country, but it's also killing the planet as a whole. It's not that I hate the dollar or capitalism or anything else like that. It's just the love of money. Not really the money itself, but it's that lust, that quest for that money and that almighty dollar. And I think to a certain extent, Bitcoin frees people because it's almost like a barter system with Bitcoin because it still is currency, but I guess because in my eyes, because the government doesn't really, the government's arguing with itself as to whether or not they believe it's a currency or not. I still look at it like almost like a more of a feudal barter system with Bitcoin and things like that and alternative currencies like that. And then I look at the current system, and that's not really saying it in a bad way either. I think that's actually a better way to do it. I think there should be alternative currencies. I don't actually a fan of the old-fashioned barter system. I don't have a problem with that either. I think anything would probably be better than the debt slave-based system that we currently have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Federal Reserve has always been my enemy. Because if you don't have money and if they're stealing from you and you have no control over that, then they're always going to have a distinct advantage. When you participate with Bitcoin, you don't even have to argue with them. You just withdraw your support. And you don't have to have your money inflated and used to kill people all around the world and your money used for projects that you don't support. So while I think that we probably will end up having to pay taxes by using Bitcoin, at least we're not dealing with the inflation tax. So, and it's not even just like the money system for Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is just step one. That peer-to-peer network has so many opportunities. For example, a friend of mine, Pamela Morgan, I always mention her because I think what she's doing is incredible. She talks a lot about Bitcoin 2.0 and its applications with law and with smart contracts and potentially making juries sort of like instead of having to go to court, you can have juries voting through the Bitcoin protocol. I mean, it's definitely something that I'm still learning about. And luckily, she's good at explaining it. I need to listen to her a few more times in order to really convey the message. But there are a lot of different opportunities opening up. There's a project called Made Safe out in Scotland, MAIDSAFE, that is basically going to solve a lot of the spying issues with the government. And they have a lot of different plans for that to help with music piracy, for education purposes, to remove propagandized news. Bitcoin is step one of many, many, many things. And I look at it almost like the internet when it first came out. So I'm really, I don't know, I just feel very fortunate that I'm able to learn about this stuff, especially now with the magazine, because I'm going to be getting all the inside scoops. So in 6 months, if you have any questions about Bitcoin, I hope that I will be able to answer them all. But for now, we're in this journey together.
Well, I mean, it's all in its infancy. And, I mean, it's already proven itself to a certain extent, that people are willing to use it and that there is this urge to use it. And as more and more people grow free from, the Federal Reserve slave debt-based system, I think alternative currencies like that, Litecoin, all of these different alternative. I mean, I've even seen like different like pot coin, cannabis coin, all this stuff. Apparently, some of the at least in the Colorado community, there's I forget what it's called. It might be pot coin or something like that. But it's used by people, I guess, inside the cannabis community too. So you even have the ability to for not just everybody as a whole, but even that's why I say it's kind of like this interesting, weird. It's like this conversion of the financial system and the barter system, but like 2.0 with like modern technology mixed in, because it's really strange because you have all these different alternative currencies, but there are exchanges where you can also trade in each of them. And if someone wants to trade Bitcoin for Litecoin, or it's just it looks very daunting, but at the same time it's in its infancy, so people shouldn't look at it with fear. I would say more curiosity than anything else. Like, just be patient. Don't rush into anything. Make informed decisions, just like you would investing in anything, really. But, I mean, I've seen, look, I can honestly say I wish that I had 2 Bitcoins back when they were like, I don't know, $3 or $4. It was worth like $3 or $4 when it, back in the day. Somebody had donated them to us over at Federal Jack a while ago. And when they were worth like $20 or $30, I had needed to cash them in because I needed the money to buy. Yeah, I needed the money to buy blank DVDs for a street action that we were doing where we were giving out free DVDs, and I didn't have any DVDs. I couldn't get anybody to donate the money, and I was like, well, I have those 2 Bitcoins, and I cashed them in. And then like a year and a half later, they were worth like $2,000, and I was like, Arr! I was so pissed.
Yeah, that's a rough one. But you know what? People, when they think of getting into Bitcoin now and they say, oh, well, I missed the boat. Now, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, blah, blah, but I'm very bullish, I guess is the expression, on Bitcoin. And I think that we're still at the infancy of the technology. So I don't think that people should get all daunted. And besides that, I don't know, yesterday it was at like 625 or something like that. You don't have to buy 1 Bitcoin for $625. If you have $20, you could buy a portion of a Bitcoin, and even set aside $10 a week to buy into Bitcoin a little bit. I think that it's a very fast-growing investment, and I think that if you don't look at it on the day-to-day price basis, if you look at it on a yearly basis, it's growing exponentially. So I think that people can still definitely get in, and they shouldn't be discouraged. And I don't know. I mean, just because it's 600 and change doesn't mean that it's not going to be a lot more. I mean,
still cheaper than
as
gold.
With anything, absolutely. And also,
gold just took a huge hit in the past 2 days. Gold just dropped like $40. Silver took a hit. So I mean, nothing is secure. Gold can still be manipulated, as can silver, as can paper currency. So it's harder to manipulate these alternative currencies. At least to a certain extent. I'm sure once they figure out it'll become legal, Tatiana, when they figure out A, how to tax it, and B, how to manipulate it. I'm going to cut us off right there because I can hear the brakes sneaking up. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. We have another half hour. Check out her website, TatianaMoroz.com. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment, tonight's live edition of DTRH. Make sure, as I said, you go check out Tatiana's site, TatianaMoroz.com, TatianaMoroz.com. Go check her out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. In fact, Tatiana, before we get into it, because I don't want to forget, I'll have you plug it at the end. But I have a tendency to go, long-winded with my guests when we get into really good conversations. And you are one smart cookie, so I know that the chances of getting sidetracked into a really deep conversation are there. So before we do, plug your Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and pretty much anything else that you want to plug.
Sure. I've got TatianaMoroz.com is my main website. TatianaCoin.com is actually getting sent over to TatianaMoroz.com in the next couple days. People can buy Tatiana Coin at coinpowers.com. You'll see me right on the front page. My Twitter is Queen Tatiana or Tatiana Coin. And on Facebook, I'm Tatiana Moroz Music. And I think that, and my YouTube is Forevermore Tatiana. So if people want to kind of see some music videos, I did some stuff, I'm constantly just doing all sorts of content that I'm posting on there, so people can go and check it out on YouTube at Forevermore Tatiana.
Good stuff. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I had you plug your stuff because I have a tendency, like I said, to get long-winded. And if I have an interesting guest like yourself on, I know we'll get sidetracked, and I'll look up and we'll have 30 seconds left. So I wanted to make sure we plugged everything. So final segment here. I want to talk positive stuff with Bitcoin, because not so much to sell the idea of Bitcoin, but to show people that, look, they're not only, okay, it's a cryptocurrency, but there are positive things being done with it. And you were telling me during the break that there's a group doing something for homeless people here in Florida with Bitcoin. So what's that all about?
Yeah, well, a good friend of mine, Jason King, he has something called Sean's Outpost, which is down in Pensacola, Florida. It's one of the most, I guess, well-known Bitcoin charities, but basically, they accept Bitcoin, and it's sort of like a homeless sanctuary. I think it's like 10 acres down there. And basically, they're providing the homeless people a place to live. They're giving them something to do. I'm really looking forward to actually visiting when I go down there. But people can go to Sean's Outpost and find out more. But basically, the homeless people are looked at like trash, and they're not trash. A lot of times, in fact, they're veterans that were forced to go into the war, thanks very much, U.S. government, and then they're all of a sudden forgotten. And that's just vile. We have to take care of the most vulnerable in society. And Jason and his wonderful family of people that are helping out down there are all, working hard to solve that problem and to give solutions. They're actually branching out to different locations. I believe that they opened one in Dallas. They're going to open one in Vancouver. So they're definitely making an impact. And that's just one of the many charities in Bitcoin. My good friend Connie Galippi, she has a charity called BitGive, and BitGive does a lot of really good work. There's Bitcoin Not Bombs. A good friend of mine, Angela Keaton, she works at antiwar.com, and antiwar.com has had a lot of great success using Bitcoin. There's a case right now that I guess the ACLU is handling for them where the FBI was illegally, maybe it was CIA, I don't know, one of those alphabet soup people. They were spying on them and recording their activities, which is, of course, not right in the first place. But people can donate anonymously now to that cause, and they don't have to fear that the government is going to target them. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for people to use Bitcoin to donate. Then there's also just peer-to-peer donations. You can, for example, Free Aid, they were raising money for I guess it was in the Philippines. There was some sort of typhoon, or it wasn't a typhoon. What's the other word? Tidal wave? Tsunami. That's it. And they were looking to kind of send them money. But if they had done it the standard way, it would have taken days. And those days, they make a really big difference when you have a crisis situation. They were able to raise money very quickly from the Bitcoin community, which is known as a very altruistic community that likes to donate to good causes. And they were able to get money and supplies on the ground when, in such a short amount of time. And the transferring of that money cost basically less than 1%, if that. And there's different ways that different companies, for example, BitPay, which is Tony Glippi's company. Tony was the one who sold me the Bitcoins. But BitPay now just opened up a program where they will help any nonprofit, charity, or political candidate accept Bitcoin for 0 fees and 0 setup fees as well. So they're just doing that to facilitate mass adoption. But imagine if you could send money to Africa and not have to pay 10 or 15 or 20% in fees in order to do that. And then you have to wait. And then it's just much more efficient. And it's cheaper. So why not use those resources in more productive ways than just giving money to lace the coffers of Western Union?
Yes, and other organizations as well. I mean, even if you try to wire money from a bank account to a bank account.
And it takes so much time to do it. I could send my friends Bitcoin and they'll have it in 15 minutes. It takes a couple minutes for it to process. So just to be on the safe side, within 15 minutes, I could send money anywhere in the world. And also, for example, in Argentina, Bitcoin's really popular there. Why? Because the government is printing money like it's going out of style, much worse than the United States. So how can people how can they hold their wealth if, everybody's not a financial advisor. They're not all going to speculate. They're not all going to make these big investments. Some people just like to put their money in a bank and leave it there. But if the government is printing money and it's devaluing the currency every year, that's a terrible idea. So people can hold their value in Bitcoin. So there's a lot of different ways I think that it's helping. Here's another good example. There's something called the Women's Annex. I just met with Fareshta. She's one of the co-founders or main women. I guess there's 2 women who run that organization. And they have women writing for their website all around the world, and they pay them in Bitcoin. And these are women in third world countries where they're not permitted to have a bank account. So previously, when they were paying them, somebody had to go around Afghanistan, not exactly the world's safest vacation spot, and they were risking their lives to deliver the money to these women. And say their husbands or their families found that money, they could get beaten up for even having it. Now with Bitcoin, they get the money instantly, and they can keep it safe. And nobody has to know about it. If they're in a dangerous situation and they need to escape, they're going to need money in order to do that. And Bitcoin is allowing that to happen. So it's something that can help the unbanked all around the world. When you think about a banking system, you think, oh, I hate my bank. I don't need a bank account. I hate them. But in reality, if you want to function, you need to have some sort of a banking system. You need to be able to keep your money somewhere. You can't just put it under your pillow. That's not very realistic. So when you have so many people around the world that don't have access to banking, Bitcoin comes along, and the possibilities for them to build a life for themselves become much wider. And I think that those are the kinds of stories that you don't really necessarily hear about in the news.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's why I wanted to get into that with you, because when you told me that, first of all, when you told me about the homeless thing going on here in Florida, I had no idea about it. And then you said, oh yeah, and there's a lot more positive solutions to Bitcoin, and of course there are. It's just, again, because I don't think about it that much. I don't get into Bitcoin that much. I'm not exposed to it. And it made the light bulb go off in my head. Like, wow, there is. I mean, just like they were the news and the powers that shouldn't be is who I'm referring to when I say they. But when they were coming on saying, "Oh my God, Silk Road, people can buy drugs with Bitcoin. It's horrible." Yeah, but you're focusing on the negative, I guess, if you support the war on drugs and all that crap. But anyway, you get my point. There's a positive thing too. I mean, like you just said, people can get out of a bad situation, and if they were caught with money, they could be killed for it. Whereas if the Bitcoin is somewhere in cyberspace and they don't physically have it on them, they can get through a checkpoint, they can get through whatever and get to safety, and then have access to that money to pay whoever, or they could have paid them in Bitcoin beforehand, so there is no worrying about carrying that. However it is, they don't have to have that money physically in their pockets in that danger zone. I mean, I didn't even think about that until you brought that up, but that's genius. That's absolutely genius.
It is very, very cool. There are a lot of opportunities that are open to us now, and it's also really fun. It's fun to use Bitcoin. There's, for example, this is another charity. I was trying to think if I had missed over anybody because there's so many good ones. Bitcoin Not Bombs. They're kind of working with Bitcoin to spread the anti-war message as well. They work very closely with anti-war. But there's one called Bitcoin 100, and if you're like a regular charity and you want to start taking Bitcoin, if you set yourself up to accept Bitcoin, they'll give you $1,000 just for doing it. And there's no strings attached. So people can check that out. There's all sorts of different opportunities opening up. And, and that person to person really gets at the crux of what we're facing, right? We've got all these borders and we've got all these barriers between us, not even, country borders, but just there's barriers among mankind. And I think that one of the key things that has always helped people overcome racism and sexism and all the other things is getting to know people on an individual level. So when you start thinking about things peer to peer, you're looking at people like people instead of a color or a sexual orientation or, any of the other things that kind of divide us, like he's an Englishman and I'm an American and I don't like this sports team. It becomes a more connected world. And I think that that's something that mankind has wanted deep in their hearts for a very long time. People have fought very hard for just the betterment of society. And this is going to allow us to do that in a way that hasn't, I don't think most people could even fathom or could have imagined that this is how far it would come and this is what it would look like.
Well, like I said, I had no idea that there was, people, obviously, yes, as I said before, it can be used for good, but just hearing you say, well, that one situation alone just sticks out in my mind. Like, wow. How many other problems like that, could be solved in a positive way? again, it's like information is just information. It's not bad or good. It's what you do with it. It's like a hammer. You can either build a house or smash someone's skull in with it. So alternative currencies is kind of the same thing if you look at it. It's not really a horrible thing. It's what you do with it and how it's handled or turned into is what could be the bad thing. But it's all or a good thing. It all depends on what the intention of the individual using it is, and I don't think any alternative currency like Bitcoin or anything should be looked upon like it's evil just because people can do things like, people bought stuff on the internet, Tatiana, that you're not supposed to be able to have access to. Naughty. Like that's never happened with cash. You know what I mean?
I'm so passionate about the Silk Road case. I mean, I'm a big supporter of Free Ross. People can go and check that out online. I know Ross's mom. Ross is the alleged Dread Pirate Roberts, which I love that reference. I think it's awesome. I like that it's like a Princess Bride thing. But think about it. What did this guy do? He created a marketplace where, I'm sorry, but they weren't only selling drugs there. Sorry that people want drugs, but it was a free market. People were getting insulin. People were getting things that could help their lives. I mean, it wasn't just drugs. And guess what? People do drugs. So would you rather have them out in the streets in a dangerous situation and glorifying the life of the drug dealer and creating these violent pockets of society? And people don't really need to do that. If they can go on the Silk Road, they can find out about the ratings, and then they could, do drugs in the safety of their home. And also, you're not wasting valuable resources on a drug war that does not work, that puts people who have drug addictions in jail. These are a lot of the times people in the jails are nonviolent criminals. They just had some weed on them, or they just had some coke on them, or God forbid heroin. That doesn't make them horrible people that need to be kept in cages. Obviously, if somebody is violent, you need to deal with that in a more aggressive way, right? You need to maybe put them away. There's different solutions, whatever. But if somebody has a drug problem, they don't deserve to go to jail. I have a really good friend of mine, Kingsley Edwards, and his father, Michael Edwards. Oh, I sent it to you. He had some coke, and it was his third trial or whatever. He went to jail for 30 years. Didn't you do a story on that?
Yep, and I actually aired it on air, too. I did a whole video for YouTube about it, and then I played it on air. It's ridiculous.
It's horrible. My friend was denied his father because they decided to throw him in jail for 30 years over coke. You know what? He's not a violent man. He's a person that had a drug problem, and that's very unfortunate. And guess what? I don't think that throwing millions and millions of dollars and including violence into this system is going to help with those legitimate problems that people are having. If people have a drug addiction, you have to treat them. You can't throw them in a cage, and you can't just start encouraging violence and not for nothing, but money laundering is going on by the government. The government likes to launder money. It's their thing. And they're in cahoots with the drug cartels. So they're not these innocent little people that are worried about our well-being and we're just trying to keep people safe and they're misguided. They're assholes. Excuse my language, but that's basically, you're dealing with violent psychopaths that are in charge of people. And I can't possibly support that. Not to mention that, guess what? I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. We were in the mall. And guess what people do in the mall sometimes? They sell drugs. So do we go to the mall owner and say, hey, listen, somebody sold drugs in your mall, so now you're going to go to jail? I'm pretty sure people have sold drugs on eBay before. So is the CEO of eBay being thrown in a cage and being accused of being, I don't know, what are they calling him, like a mafioso kingpin? I mean, give me a break. It's insane, and I think that they fear that people, the charade will be up. If people really take the time to educate themselves on the Silk Road case and to really educate themselves on the drug war, all of those facades will crumble and the truth will be told, and people will be freer than they were before. And I think that scares the crap out of the establishment, and it should, because their cartel is seeing its end of days, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, so, and there's the other people that push against it too, and push for the war on drugs, are the private prison industrial complex, because their roles wouldn't be filled the way they are if they didn't have everybody getting arrested for even the slightest infraction, like smoking a joint, which is just out of control. And again, why do we treat an addiction to something as a criminal offense where you could possibly get shot and killed by the officer because the guy's on too many steroids and too much human growth hormone himself, which isn't that illegal? Oh, but let's not look into that. I guess that's okay. But,
well, look at all the kids that are going around, shooting up the schools and stuff like that. I mean, all those kids are on drugs that they were prescribed.
Right.
What about the prescription drugs?
What's the difference between that stuff? That stuff's horrible too and actually has worse side effects.
Worse.
But yeah, that's okay because it's legal.
Well, you don't see any potheads going around killing people. No, they're just sitting around eating all the cookies. Like the worst thing that's going to fight. I mean, and they won't even fight over the cookies. They'll just be like, ha, 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 let's go get more of them. I mean, they're like pretty peaceful people. And yeah, there are harder drugs and there are absolutely, I'm not, let's all go do a bunch of drugs. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But people are going to do drugs and there are drugs that are legal. Look at alcohol. People beat the crap out of their spouse and like go around driving and killing people when they're drunk. You don't really see that happening with pot so much. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get fat and maybe you're going to get a little slow.
The only thing pot is a gateway to is the refrigerator. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Seriously.
The gateway drug to the refrigerator. I like that one.
It's ridiculous. And, a couple of years ago, I forget who it was in Congress, they were questioning the former head of the FBI, Mueller, and they made a comment to him, and they said, and he was, this guy was at least educated, the congressman was educated about, cannabis to a certain degree, and he said to him, well, if marijuana is a gateway drug to heroin, then milk is a gateway drug to bourbon. And Mueller said, well, yeah, pretty much. Like, he agreed with it. So I guess that means that milk should be outlawed. Oh, wait a minute. They do outlaw milk unless it's pasteurized and sold by the companies that inject it with human growth hormone. Raw milk is, suddenly becoming illegal in all sorts of places. It's ridiculous. All the stuff, like when you were talking about Bitcoin and you were talking about the Dread Pirate Roberts, I love that reference. But when you were talking about all the things that they attack people like him for, like doing, it's amazing that it's like a cheating spouse, Tatiana, like that they start to accuse you of cheating on them and doing all sorts of weird things, and you're like, I'm not cheating on you. And then you're like, I wonder if they're projecting. That's exactly what they do. The government like projects onto these, oh my God, somebody bought drugs on the Silk Road. Okay. There's people that buy drugs everywhere. Does that mean we should outlaw cities?
Yeah, or streets or cars.
New York City should be shut down. And look, if we really wanted to stop drug running, they would just close the CIA tomorrow, and then that would stop a large portion of the drug running, probably about 75 to 80% of it that comes into the country. So let's just get real. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. So I don't know. It's very upsetting, and I really would like to encourage people to check out what Ross's mom, Lynn Ulbricht, is doing. If they go to free_Ross, they can, that's like the Twitter handle, and they can find out, all the websites and stuff like that. But they're really trying to get attention for his case, and I'm a big supporter of that. So I always try and mention it, especially now that, I've gotten to know Lynn a little bit better. We were on a Women in Bitcoin panel, and she stole the show with her story because that case has a lot of implications. She, of course, explains it a lot better than I do. I barely understand it myself, but she explains how it has a lot of implications on cryptocurrency and how it will be viewed in the future. So it's not even just about him. It's about setting precedent. So I don't know. I think that people should definitely check it out. She did a really great speech over at PorkFest. I was at PorkFest a few weeks ago, and she got a standing ovation. So very inspiring woman, and I encourage people to check it out and not get too. I'm assuming that your audience isn't too anti-drugs, but in general, I mean, people shouldn't just look at it as a black and white thing. Drugs are bad, and he has to go to jail. I mean, come on, open your mind a little bit, folks, and because it could be any of us. Behind the that the government is targeting at any point, free speech, and I mean, there's just so many challenges facing the country. We have to rally behind people who are working for freedom, even if we don't like what that freedom allows people. Doesn't mean that you have to do drugs, So yeah, that's something I'm pretty passionate about. It's very sad.
Well, that whole case is just ridiculous, and the government always tries to make out whoever they're trying to make an example of to be like the new Bin Laden of whatever it is that they're trying to, rally against. And you'll get some prosecutor that's trying to make a name for himself out there. They get on the case, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And they don't want to, to a certain extent, maybe not the prosecutor, but the people that control things, you know how it is, higher up the food chain. Like you said, they don't want that to get out of they don't want the genie out of the bottle, per se. The genie was starting to get out of the bottle, and they're literally trying to put the cap back on it. They don't want it to get out because, can you imagine if you had a free open market? Consider the Silk Road, like the eBay of the world, that you could pay with just cryptocurrency, and it was very easy to get access to many things that, for many people, yes, okay, some bad, but in many cases, like you said, people are getting access to medicine with Bitcoin.
Oh, raw milk. That dangerous raw milk. You got to watch out.
Ooh, well, we got to send in SWAT teams with guns, Tatiana, because that's the only way to solve things is with violence and bullets.
Yes, and make sure that you shoot a couple dogs along the way. Maybe a couple grandmothers while you're at it, just to be safe. This is what happens when the government gets involved. They're like gangsters. And they kind of amp these police officers up. I don't think that all police are bad, but they're in these really, really crazy environments, and they're kind of encouraged to look at the people that they were supposed to serve and protect as the enemy. We've lost our way somewhere along the path, and we diverged from the path, I guess, and fine, maybe we aren't going to have a complete, free market anarcho-capitalist society anytime soon, but I'm pretty sure we could do better than what's going on right now.
Now, I can say I wholeheartedly agree about 10,000% with you. We don't need to, and what we even have today isn't real capitalism. It's what did John Perkins call it? Crony capitalism. It's like and I even think it's something other than that. That's even a modified. I think it's modified and morphed out of that. It's not true capitalism, and we can't go back to, we have to go in reverse. No, there's no going in reverse. What we can do is learn from all of the mistakes of the past and try to build something new that actually serves the people itself, and doesn't serve just a small group of individuals. And we have to stop living in fear. That's the biggest thing. We have to stop fearing everything from the being afraid of Bitcoin to being afraid of bin Laden being in your friggin' underwear drawer and being afraid of each other. That's our biggest problem. They control us via that, and if we can just get over that and realize that we're all on the same team. Stop looking at each other like we're divided, like, she's a woman, I'm a man, or he's black, I'm white, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Or, I'm straight, he's gay. All the divisions need to stop. We're all human. If we can all get to that level, a lot of this crap that we see and deal with, all this negativity would stop. But then again, then the powers that shouldn't be would lose all of their power, and they'd become irrelevant in the blink of an eye, which, by the way, is the solution to the problem. But I digress. Tatiana, we have about a minute left. I'm going to don't hang up. I'll say goodbye to you, off air as well. But really quick, plug everything one more time, throw your website and all that stuff out there, and any upcoming events or anything you want to throw out there.
Sure. TatianaMoroz.com. Twitter is Queen Tatiana, Tatiana Coin. YouTube, Forevermore Tatiana. Facebook, Tatiana Moroz Music. I'm doing a bunch of shows in the Bay Area for the next couple of weeks. I'll be in Nashville for a Night of Clarity in the middle of August. So people can just check into my sites and find out, and they'll also be able to keep an eye on me at Bitcoin Magazine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It was an amazing conversation. I have to get you back on to pick your brain because you're just an amazing lady. Ladies and gentlemen, Tatiana Moroz. Make sure you check her out, support her, go check her music out. You don't have to become the world's biggest fan, but at least give her music a try. I'll tell you what, I checked it out and I'm hooked. And I like heavy metal. Not that death metal crap, though. Joe likes that garbage. Anyway, as I always tell you, the solutions to our problems are most definitely an inside job. I love you all, ladies and gentlemen. We are out of here.